There are a lot of thank yous and celebrations today, and I am up here to honor and give thanks to the members of our community who have been leading the small group ministry program this past year. A little history. The small group ministry program here was started in the late 1990s when we thought that we needed to create a smaller opportunity for people to get to know each other, to develop and deepen their relationships with other people in this congregation, with themselves, and with their ground of being. And so we started the small group ministry program. These are groups, usually no more than about 10 people, who meet twice a month from the fall till the spring, led by 2 facilitators. And there's also a shorter summer program for people who just want a taster to see what it's like. Small group ministry, for those who don't know, is not a drop-in group. We believe it's really important that there is a commitment to attending regularly, because it's really only by doing so that we're able to develop trust with one another. And trust is absolutely essential if we're to open up and to grow more deeply in our spiritual quests. These are confidential groups, and what is shared in the group stays in the group. In these small groups, people have heard someone else sharing something and realized that that was their own truth being spoken. And in these small groups, people have had transforming experiences. But most particularly in these small groups, we practice the art, I would call it the ministry, of learning to listen, to really deeply listen to one another, to hear each other into speech. Many people in this congregation have participated in small group ministries. It's one of the programs in the life of this church through which we deepen our connection with one another and with our spiritual ground. Each of these small groups is led by 2 volunteers from the congregation who've been in a group and who've been recognized and chosen and trained to become facilitators. Leading a group can be challenging, but it is also one with huge rewards in terms of one's own development as a leader and also in terms of one's own growing and deepening spiritual awareness. Once a month, the facilitators meet with me for a time of sharing, reflection, and discernment. And I want to talk a little bit about what a program of faith development and spiritual growth has meant to me. It was in the 1970s, through the religious education program, and that was what it was called then, that I came to be invited into the Unitarian Universalist Church in Knoxville, Tennessee. I like the word education. It comes from the Latin educare, to lead out. And my experience in Knoxville was of Mary Nelson, who was the Minister of Religious Education, who led me out from my thinking. Now, I may be someone who comes to this church and I'm curious, but I don't want to join this church. I don't want to join any church. I'm not a joiner. And also thinking, I may have children in this church school, but I am not and could never be a teacher. I'm not a leader. But Mary Nelson beckoned me. She literally did this. She said, Margot, I'd like to talk to you. She led me out of my no response into a yes. Yes, I finally said, yes, I'll try and co-lead a group of 6th and 7th graders for 6 weeks, just to see how it goes, but only for 6 weeks. Well, I ended up by teaching the curriculum Why Bad Things Happen for a full year. And it was a wonderful year for me. I was challenged by the questions such as, why do bad things happen to good people? I was moved by the kids and what they shared in that class. I remember a boy telling us about his dog who'd been hit by a passing car. Why, he kept asking, why? And I found my heart opened by the children and their struggles and their joys. I found community in that Sunday morning room where the co-leader and I met with the children. And I ended up by joining the church because I knew by then that I was being led out on my own spiritual journey of exploration. It was for the children, but much more it was for me that I was there on Sunday mornings. It was through my experience in the religious education program that I met other teachers and parents who became my community within the church, a community of learning as well as teaching, a community of growing trust and friendship, a community of help and support in my own ongoing spiritual quest. And I believe, you see, that it's this quality of community that's available to anyone who wants to be part of a small group ministry. And I want to thank each and every one of the facilitators and the leaders of the small group ministry who enable this program to continue year after year. I'd like to recognize Elaine Pratt, who, and please come up, Elaine, as I say your name, who's done a wonderful job coordinating the program this past 2 years, who's been incredibly generous in her hospitality, inviting the facilitators to her house for their annual retreat, and who's been just a huge pleasure to work with. Despite the fact she got married in the middle of all of this, she's continued to be a wonderful leader for the small group ministry program. And I would like to invite Anish Johnson to come up to thank him for his wonderfully supportive and efficient and responsible leadership over this past year. Anish will continue into next year, and I'm so grateful for that. We'd also like to welcome Bobby Kovac, who cannot be here this morning, but she is coming on as co-coordinator with Anish next year. And finally, I would like to say a big, big thank you to all the facilitators for your gifts of time, leadership, patience, compassion, creativity, listening skills, and your love for your groups. So Elaine is now going to invite you one by one to come up and be recognized.
The program, the facilitators are crucial to the program for facilitating listening and being heard. And I'd ask you to come up so we can thank you. Margaret Levitt, Alan Constant, Casey Christian, Julia Wald, Millie Phillips, Louise Discarud, and Judith Stoddard. Thank you so much.